Hey everybody, how you all are? Today we're going to make a HooterHolderHanger. Now, what's a HooterHolderHanger, you may ask? Stay tuned and we'll show you how to make one and tell you what it is. The first thing that we had to do to start this project was to make a paper pattern. And boy, I tell you, it's a lot more work than I thought it was. This is the first one I ever did freehand by myself. After making the pattern, I took it and used it for my templates and to make my prototype, which came out really nice. And it enabled me to decide on whether or not I was actually going to make the video. I'm using a piece of 1/4 inch plywood that I had found in the back of my stock, so it's, just hanging around. And it had to have the edges squared off so that it was parallel. And boy, this old man is slow at cutting this stuff, isn't he? Everything's got to be almost exact. This way, if it's crooked, it was done on purpose. It was a little warped, so I had to kind of flip it over and around and everything like that. Utilizing the having a hard pattern was really nice. It made everything work and run pretty quick. I was able to take that pattern and lining it up on the blade, I was able to make an oversized blank that didn't have a lot of waste on it, but yet had enough that enabled me to be able to work with it and do what needed to be done. And it ripped out pretty well. I've been experimenting with a couple of different push sticks that I've been trying, and they're the one that I'll use this time. I don't think I'm gonna use anymore. Another interesting thing that I found with this saw is that I catch myself overreaching, which was probably a good thing, but the kerf, the riving knife, gives the idea, or gives the feeling that the blade is farther back than it actually is. And so I do a lot more stretching than I normally do. And I'm making 2 of them, so it takes 4 blanks. And as you can see, it's all going to fit right in where it needs to go. Due to technical difficulties beyond my control, the first original video didn't go. So we created a reenactment so that you can see what is like the initial start, the initial set of drilling. I drill 1/4 inch holes. I've got 4 1/4 inch holes on the blank, and you drill directly through them. And I use slightly smaller. I just sanded them down a little bit, 1/4 inch dowels that go inside there. And with the 4 of them, it holds the blank onto the stock extremely well. It enables me to remove the blank, or the blank when as I need it. And because in a couple of the operations that I do, you have to remove the blank. And it's pretty straightforward. Once that you've done drilling your 1/4 inch holes, you can go ahead and put that one back and put a 1/8 inch drill bit into your drilling machine, because all the other holes that are in this project are going to be 1/8 inch. Because I've got the holes drilled into the template, it's real easy to line everything up. There's 5 equal distance holes on each side of the wide center portion, and then there's a center hole that's dead center in the blank, or in the template. At this time, it's a good time to go ahead and trace out around the template, so this way you know where you're going to cut all your scrap out. And my drill bit's a little short, so I have to pull my pin out before I can do any drilling. And it's just a matter of drilling a bunch of little 1/8 inch holes. I use a backer on it, and it's still got a lot of fuzz, tear out, or however you want to call it. I had a couple places where it tore out, and that's because there's a real thin veneer on one side of this plywood, and for some reason it just didn't want to cooperate. But it cleaned up pretty well with some sanding. One thing I wanted to mention is that if you don't want to have the holes left into the finished project, which I didn't care, I told my wife that that's a Euro design, Euro style, showing my age, huh? But you can take and cut a little piece of dowel and put it in there, and sand it off flush, and then do it before you do your total sanding the whole thing, and it all becomes part of one process. I try to do all my drill work at the same time when I can, but in this project I had 4 more holes that had to be drilled. Well, actually just 2 holes per HooterHolderHanger, and those are 2 that are done on the bottom cross member near the top, and that's to facilitate mounting the handle hook, or hanging hook rather. And we'll show you that a little bit later. Now we go to the bandsaw and cut around the outline of the piece, leaving about 1/4 of an inch or so outside the line, which we're going to take off with the router. Okay, it's not a bandsaw, but it's my bandsaw, and it works pretty good. It works a lot better than running along with a jigsaw, believe me. And for most of the work that I do, this is actually probably going to work out real well as a bandsaw. I'm going to have to figure out a way to get a better camera angle so you're not seeing elbows. I'm working on it. I'll try again next time, hopefully. Well, now I'm just going to take a straight trim bit with a bearing that's, well, it's on the top of the router table, but it's a bottom bearing, and just run it across it, and it will make perfectly aligned and identical pieces. My intention originally was to be able to do the whole thing, do the whole 4 pieces at one time. But this little bit had seen better days, and I didn't want to push it. So I kind of took my time and did each one individually by themselves. They came out nice. There was a little bit of tear out and a little bit of fuzzing, but all in all, they look good. And the although it may look like my fingers are really close to the cutter, they're not. I'm actually holding on to the little pegs in that, and I got a lot better purchase that way. I kept the dust collection running, even though the fence was so far away, and it was kind of cool because it picked up all the fine dust and sucked it all in. And if you look close, I probably should have said this earlier, if you look close, you can see that it was doing a lot of good in dust collection. This is another reenactment. The first video didn't come out, so we had to remark them. Utilizing that one center 1/8 inch hole, you're able to center the scrap piece of wood of your stock onto that and set up and make your marks, then draw your lines. It also sets up the top, the center of it sets up where the top of your notch is going to be, or bottom, depending on what side you're using, but that's where you're going to stop cutting your notch. It's just a matter of drawing some straight lines, even though the bottom is probably not that straight. And then I kind of freehanded the cross piece across the center of the hole. And then from there, I went and just marked out where I wanted to cut my scrap out, ensuring that since I'm doing 4 of them, I wanted to ensure that I had 2 that had the top cut out and 2 that had the bottom cut out. And then we're ready to go and cut those notches out. Well, it's back to the bandsaw, and we're going to cut these notches out. There's a lot of different ways that you can actually do that. I had thought about using my sled and the table saw, but I actually did want to try this and see how well it would work. And I was impressed. It did pretty good. I was able to do a very tight cut, and it was pretty straight. And able to work up a little bit on either side to get a nice even gap and a really good fit. So it works well. I'm impressed. Now we start the part that everybody loves, sanding. I got all the fuzzies, like the little tear outs and all that kind of stuff off very well by using a piece of 220 grit sandpaper, just kind of wrapped around my finger and kind of rounded the edges off over and everything like that, and did really well. Made it, especially when you got an open area like this to work with, you can get around with it pretty well. Coming up is going to be when I went and we drilled 2 holes in the upper end, and those are going to facilitate hanging the next part of this project is making the hanger hook, and it's exactly the same as making the pieces that go across, so I'm going to save you the time and hassle and just go ahead and do it. Now here I made a jig which enabled me to be able to drill through the clothespins without splitting them. It brings the clothespin up off of the table, giving it room to line it up, and it kind of lines them up. They're not 100% because each one of those is a little inconsistent too. here's where we start to do the big time assembly. I cut a 80-pound monofilament fishing line, 5 inches long, and you cut 20 of those. You want to make sure that you have exactly 20, because that's what's going to help you keep track of how many of those suckers you want to put up there. If you end up with extra string and you have to go looking for the hole you missed, if you come up short, and gee, I don't know what the heck happened. Assembly is pretty easy. It takes a 1 millimeter, I think it's 1 millimeter aluminum crimp and a crimping tool. And basically what you do is you heat one end with a lighter and tap it against the lighter so that it kind of like makes a little mushroom. Then you run your crimp down to that mushroom or near that mushroom. Thread the line through the 2 holes that you have, and then thread that piece of line through the crimp, mushroom it out using a lighter, pull them back kind of tight, and then crimp it down. It sounds kind of complicated, but really it's not too bad. There's no real need to keep any kind of orientation on the clothespins, but I have found that if you keep the crimps to the back side of the clothespin so that they can't get in between the 2 handle portions when you're using them, it makes life a little bit easier in the long run. Man, I tell you, little pieces and big paws sure makes it hard to show stuff. Hopefully you get the idea. There are other ways that you can hook this stuff together. You can use wire, S-clips. This is just what I had available to me, and it worked out well. After you have all your clothespins assembled, now it's time to glue them together. That's all pretty straightforward. Little glue in the cracks, clamp it together till it dries, and you'll have an X-shaped hanging thing. Last but not least is installing the hanger hook. It's pretty straightforward. They're I don't have a length on the line. I just take a long piece of it and kind of string it around and then connect it together, because the distance between the top and the hook is arbitrary. But you feed it through one hole, then you put it through the 1/4-inch hole that's on the hook, feed it through the same side, the opposite side hole on the same side, bring it back, feed it through the hook again, and then you connect the two together with a crimp. Adjust the height to however you feel comfortable with. I like to keep mine, when I measure it, it's probably about 1.5 inches, and it ends up being about 2.5, 3 inches after I get it all done and hanging, because they will stretch a little bit. Well, if you haven't figured out what a HooterHolderHanger is by now, let me give you a couple hints. Well, there it is. The HooterHolderHanger in all its glory. You can see that there's a double cable going through it. And there is the HooterHolderHanger holding Hooter holders. As you can see, it's basically nothing more than just a glorified lingerie rack. Hey, if you like this, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, let me know. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a very fine day, and I hope you had as much fun with this video as I did making it and making the project. And I hope you try it. It's kind of cool to make.